Hey,
Good evening, Tom.
Hey, Brian.
good evening, Tom.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
It's
All
good.
right.
Yeah, 6 a.m., man. Bright-eyed and bushy
Yeah,
haired.
good.
Bright-eyed and bushy-haired. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
Henna,
Hey,
how you doing? Hey, there she is.
Hello, Henna.
hey, nice to meet you, Tom.
Hey, Hannah.
Yep, you got Tom and Brian here and Mike.
I wanted to have a bell, and I was going to say, ding in the left corner, ding in the right corner. Would you guys believe this is crazy? I mean, and this is the truth. And it's a dream. Dreams can be anything, right? I mean, so I'm just sharing it just for fun because it's part of life, right? What are the odds? I literally dreamt, like just before I woke up here in the last hour, I was in a dream that the four of us were in, all four of us, because we were going to do this show, and we were getting ready to do something. It was weird. Tom started pulling me around by my arms on the ground like a stretch thing to stretch me out. So then and then he started pulling Brian. So then Hannah, I grabbed your arms and started pulling you. My wife started getting jealous. Dreams are bizarre, man. And then we were like, I don't know, it was just weird, but it was the four of us in a dream. Just
Is your back
like,
hurting or something? Is that why you were wanting to be stretched or something?
no, dreams,
Want to be
man,
straightened
they're just
out.
crazy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get straightened out. All
How do
right.
you guys manage to wake up at this hour? My God.
We don't do it often, but when we have to, we can do it. I had to go out.
That's
Actually, the tail of the Hurricane Eta here, is kind of still raining, and we have a pond out front that overflows. So I had to go out and hook up a pump to pump out the pond so we didn't get flooded here.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've been up for a little while.
Yeah, we were
We've had
raining
some
here in
storms
Miami.
here as well.
It's raining there too.
Yeah, just last week we had a massive storm, and
Oh,
part
yeah.
of our roof, not our main roof, but like from the terrace was actually torn off, and
Oh no.
it was raining, and it's so windy that the water was coming through the cracks of the windows like bucket
Wow.
loads. So we were like staying up all night with towels drying the floors. It was
Oh,
mad.
wow.
Holy moly.
That's
So is
cool.
that a hurricane? Was that a hurricane or just a storm? Or
Just a storm, yeah.
Yeah.
By the Mediterranean Sea. So sometimes we get really big storms here as well. But yeah, I can only imagine what the hurricanes are like. My God.
they're fun sometimes. It's not too bad. All right. So yeah, we were wanting to just get the two the great people together. Tom, I think you've been kind of talking about the raw meat diet, kind of as, I don't know if that's the main thing, but, and then Hannah, I think you're kind of vegan, right? So we were just wanting to kind of have a discussion on maybe what each of you thinks is the best diet for yourselves and humanity, and I guess, and so Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, that's the idea, man. I guess I gave you guys the title of the video, right? the raw meat eating God versus the golden vegan goddess, right?
Right. So maybe we could start out with the ladies first. Maybe just say how you came to, grew up and whatever, and if you had influences about eating and when you decided to pick a diet, or if you're jumping around like I did all my life and still haven't figured it out. So yeah, maybe you could start, Hannah.
Sure. Yeah. For me, it's for purely ethical reasons. So I grew up eating meat every single meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and evening snack. There was always something, some animal body part that I was eating, and I never questioned it. It was in our culture. I enjoyed the flavor. I didn't have any health issues. So I was doing fine on a omnivorous diet. But then just out of the blue, I actually met an animal rights activist in London some 10 years ago. And he just asked me, what are your values in life? What is important to you? And I said to him, nonviolence, peace, love, these things. And he said, okay, well, do you eat tortured animals? And that one question just lit up a light bulb in my head. And I realized, wow, I've never taken the time in my life to contemplate that. I've never come to consider that there would be another option, another way to live. And then he started telling me about the animal agriculture industry. He started telling me about all the different ways the animals are slaughtered, about how they're forcefully inseminated, and so on and so forth. So he just really kind of gave me the gist of it, what it's like from the perspective of the activist, why they are standing on the streets, why they are sharing the information, why they're educating people. And that just had a massive, huge impact on me. And I always considered myself an animal lover. So I came to feel that how could I call myself that if I participate in this cruel industry? So then I decided I'm going to give it a try. I didn't tell anybody because I had no friends or family who were vegan at the time. I was the first one. So I just went and bought a cookbook, like gourmet plant-based recipes. And I started trying out different things. And I found incredibly flavorful, beautiful foods. And as I started eating that way, I actually started getting a lot of benefits. Like I used to suffer from insomnia, but as I shifted to the plant-based diet, I started dreaming a lot better, like sleeping a lot better. I started having a lot more energy in my day. I just overall started feeling a lot better in my physical body, although I never suffered from anything particularly, any ailments, but I did notice a difference, like I clearly went into like a detox mode for a while, for a couple of months, where I felt like I needed to drink a lot of water as my body was shifting. But after that, I felt normal, in a good way. And it was just such a positive experience for me that I never went back. So that's in February, it'll be 9 years now that I've been on a plant-based diet. And I've started studying plant-based nutrition this year as well, just to learn more about the health benefits of it. So, but for me, it's not a health thing. That's not the reason why I went plant-based. It was for the animals.
And I know there's a couple types of vegan diets. Like some people don't eat honey, and I guess a total strict diet. Can you delineate? Are there different types of vegetarian or vegan diet? Would you say like dairy?
Yeah, I mean, vegetarian diet originally it meant only plants. So I don't know at what point people added eggs and dairy and things like that into it, or some people even fish. But for me, if you say vegetarian, it means plants. But anyway, so in 1944, this term was coined, vegan, which means only plants. And so, but it's a philosophy more than a diet. So the veganism means it's a philosophy like ahimsa, in the Hindu religion, in the sacred tradition. So it means doing as little harm as possible. So because of that, some vegans, they do eat honey if they have, for example, ethically sourced honey and they feel that they're not doing any harm to the bees, if they're not killing the bees, or if they have, for example, rescued hens, which are producing eggs that they are feeding back to the hens as you're supposed to, but they're still producing too many because they've been hybridized into a type of a hen that produces way more than what is natural. So they may eat those eggs in that case. But, overall, it means you are just living a plant-based lifestyle, and you're participating as little as possible into any sort of animal abuse or animal exploitation. So there's no zoos, you don't wear leather, you don't, as much as you can, you don't buy things that contain animal products, even if it comes to shoes or glue or paints or inks or, whatever. So it's a big commitment, but it's totally ethically based.
Wow, that explains it pretty good, Tom. I mean, that makes sense to me. What do you think? So you got a different philosophy, kind of.
Well, wait a minute, Brian. I know I usually talk too much, but I just want to say, yes, that was really beautifully stated. Thank you. It really was. I that was touching to me, and I mean, it was meaningful to me the way you said that. I appreciate it.
That's great.
Tom, you're up, buddy. You're up,
yeah,
buddy.
cool. So,
Raw meat, come on.
So first of all, I think it's actually great that you guys put this together, because it's pretty rare that you get people who have, differing lifestyles that are willing to go and talk to each other. They usually think the other one is like Satan or something, and whatever. So this is great. So first of all, I actually follow most of what Hannah said because I also don't consume any products or wear any clothing or anything like that that has in some way come at the expense of an animal. I don't go to zoos. I won't go to SeaWorld. I won't buy animals that have been bred for commercial use, you know, like puppies and whatever. I love animals, but I'll only ever get them from rescue shelters, that sort of thing. So the only difference being is that what I eat is for health primarily. But there's a big distinction too between what is raised naturally and what comes from the commercial agribusiness, system. So all of the animals that I eat either come that I've got myself, or they come from local farms where they've lived completely natural lives. When they're taken for their slaughter, it's done in a way that is more or less ceremonial, and all of it is based on just health. Essentially, there's not much in it that is, taking a philosophical standpoint. But when I did go plant-based for not a number of years, it was a number of months, and I actually I didn't go too well with my health from that. I went downhill pretty quick because we all have varying biochemistry and different roots and different things. And some people will do quite well on a plant-based diet, and other people will get really sick really quick. And when I was looking into anthropology and I studied most natural living tribes that are untouched by Western culture, they're some of the most spiritually advanced people on earth. And every single one of them that I found ate at least, I won't give a percentage, but they all ate flesh in some kind, or dairy, or cheese, or bugs, tarantulas, worms, ants, whatever. They all ate some kind of animal food. So it led me to, really start looking into the ethics and the, I guess the cycle of life and how it all comes together. So, basically I agree with everything that Hannah said, except for that for me, it's like the animals that I do eat, or the, whatever animal products that I eat come from, like the honey comes from natural hives. I'd love to get bee pollen, but I don't get bee pollen because the only way to get it naturally, it can kind of tear the legs off the bees. So I don't take it, even though that would be very helpful for me to have. I just won't do it because I don't think the bees should lose their legs so that I can get bee pollen, but I'm more than happy to take the honey, because there's plenty of honey they're not treated badly. The honeycomb is it's done in a way that they don't lose out a lot by me having the honey and things like that. So yeah, that's a good place to start with, I guess.
Yeah.
That was well stated too, because the point you made about us all, number one, being different, having different chemistries, and the fact that our bodies react to different things, and the kind of nutrition and the way our bodies absorb for ourselves the nutrition it needs is a factor. And
yeah, because there are realistically, like I said, I went plant-based, and I would ideally like to be. It's just that my body at this point in time won't allow it. And me and some of the people I learned nutrition from, I've rehabilitated probably 5 dozen people that went on to vegan and vegetarian diets that just wasn't suitable for their body. They ended up really sick. But I've never had to rehabilitate like somebody that eats animal foods, except for the people that just eat the dodgy stuff and overcook it and get it from commercial sources that's had a lot of bad stuff done to it. It's a really sick animal that they're eating, and obviously it makes them sick. It's depleted the earth, the soil, and everything in the way that those animals have been used as a commercial product. So then they obviously can become sick, but not in the same way that I've seen with the plant-based people that I've had to rehabilitate. Having said that, I do have plenty of friends that are vegan, and they're nothing wrong with them. Like, why would they change? Because it's working for them. It's working for their body. But I have had numerous people, and same with the people that I've learned from, that have had to rehabilitate, like a lot of people that have gone on to vegan and vegetarian diets, whether or not they did it right, if there's a right way and a wrong way. But at the same time, I think it was just wrong for their body type, and they got very sick.
Can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead, Hannah, please.
Yeah, I think that's a really important factor, what you bring up about how you do it, because what happens is everyone does go on a transitioning detox as soon as you shift your diet, especially if you've eaten animal products your whole life, and then cold turkey, you change into, vegetarian or vegan. and then don't do it in a way that you're supporting your body while you're transitioning. So this is where I've come across people where they say that it didn't work for them because they went into basically a healing crisis in their body. And as we know, when you're detoxing, it can feel that you are becoming sick because you're, you know, releasing a ton of toxins at the same time, and your body's digestion system is working differently. Your metabolic system is beginning to change. So for example, for myself, what happened to me, like I said, I had a couple of months of detoxing symptoms. I started getting headaches because I realized I was getting dehydrated because I had such a tremendous shift in how much fiber I was getting from my diet. And when you have a lot of fiber in your diet, you need that much more water because it sucks in the water from your body. So that was the shift for me when I started taking more water. And I mean, the first few months, 3 months, I was drinking 4 liters a day. After that, it balanced out. And my detoxing symptoms went, and now I don't need to drink. It's like 2 liters a day, like everyone else. But so I think what is the key here is understanding that whenever you make a shift in your diet, that you have to do it with consciousness. And it would be helpful for you to have a naturopathic doctor or, you know, a specialist plant-based nutritionist who's going to help you with that and make sure that you're getting all your micronutrients, that you have all the support your body needs for the detoxing symptoms. And so I'd be interested to hear if you know what kind of plant diets they were having and how long were they on them, and what were the problems that they were experiencing.
Yeah, well, most of them were from like a prolonged exposure. So like 1 to 5 years, somewhere around that. And all of it was a hormonal disruption. So a metabolic crash and a hormonal disruption. That was basically and then everything, all the symptoms that lead on from that, but they were that was like the base issue with all of them.
Right, yeah. Well, that would make sense if you think that you're taking in all the hormones from the animal products, and then all of a sudden you cut it all out. It can do a huge shift in your system as well, just that, and all the difference in cholesterol, you know, all the, like, it's a massive drastic difference, obviously. So yeah, I have, as I've been studying plant-based nutrition, what I've come across is that it's incredibly healing diet. And, you know, there are clinics that treat people, they reverse heart disease, you know, diabetes, arthritis, MS, all sorts of illness just with the plant-based diets. And I know dietitians and doctors that do this as well. So clearly it's not true that somehow by default a plant-based diet would make people sick. That perhaps we need to do a lot more studies about this, that why some people are having this kind of experiences, because it can, on the other hand, be so incredibly healing also.
I'm sorry, Tom. I just wanted to interject on that part because, you know, for me, listening to both of you guys talk, like earlier, I responded to Tom saying, yeah, I think it's true. Different people have different, you know, chemistries and stuff. Really, I am favoring philosophically, mentally, psychologically, intellectually, spiritually, the position of henna in terms of, like, my thoughts would be also that, yeah, you know, because you said, even Tom, it was a few months, you know, for you, and you felt sick. The fact that there is that detox period, that detox can last for a while. And I think that detox can be a big deterrent for a lot of people. And it may even make them think that, you know, that they still need the meat when really they don't, because they just had to get over the hump. And even if it's a prolonged time, 1 to 5 years, as you said, I still think that there's other variables that are involved, because, you know, what other kinds of foods are the people eating that can also be offsetting in terms of, you know, junk or other bad items that really shouldn't be in the food. Alcohol, do they drink? You know, other things that could be having an effect as well to prevent that full over the hump, you know, complete detox and over the hump, and wow, I'm home free, like Henna's experience. And of course, there's other people, you know, like Henna's experience. But I think it's a really, even though I'm favoring and agreeing really ultimately with what you're saying, Henna, and Henna's kind of taken position on, I think, and my best way of saying is, like I said, getting over that hump and really truly detoxing and having a really diverse, good nutritional diet in plant-based. I think we can all get there. I think that is possible. But again, going back to Tom's point, you guys have heard of Ted Nugent, right?
I think I've heard the name. I don't know who he is.
Ted Nugent's a rock and roll guy here in the United States. He was really popular. And the funny thing about him is he's, you think rock and roll, and it's true, a lot of the rock and roll culture and history back in the 60s and 70s, included drugs and smoking marijuana and drinking and stuff. And a lot of, rock stars over the years were involved with that. But he was one of the few who had nothing at all to do with drugs, never smoked marijuana, never put drugs in his body, never drank alcohol. And he was a hunter. He was like a hunter guy. And there's videos where you hear, he's older now, he's an older guy, but in his youth, he would always say that when he would hunt, and there's nothing like venison. I don't know if you've eaten venison, but venison is a really delicious, food that when you eat it, you even feel energized. And it's kind of consistent with the idea of, we are what we eat. If you eat a cow, they're sluggish, but deers are jumping 20 feet and running, it's like, it's a different food source. And this guy, he says it's like rocket fuel, and he's like, at the same time talking about that when he does hunt, like you were saying, Tom, it's very spiritual, it's very ritualistic. It is natural, it's out in the wild. He's hunting for food, for sustenance. It's like you can go both ways with it. He's ritualistic about it, he's spiritual about it. It's a high energy food, it makes him feel good. I mean, at the same time, does he really need it? I mean, the argument can go. So I think that ultimately, yes, we can all go the way of plant-based, and that there's a hump to get over, and there's a serious detox, and it has to be well balanced and fully nutritious, and we can all get there. And I experienced that in my earlier years too. When I was 17, I went cold turkey and went through the detox and became a vegan for like 8 months. And I did get over it. And I felt, the funny thing is I can reflect on that point in my life, and there was a point where it wasn't even me. It was like I was completely free of stress and nervousness and tension. And I felt pure and whole. I felt great. And it was completely vegan. And I remember after about 8 months where I was there, in my case, it was spiritually or religiously based, because I was seeking answers to life and God and Christianity and all that when I was younger. So it became, it didn't have the proper motivation, right? It wasn't really based on a good motivation, like I think Henna's is, a very philosophical based. It was kind of more of almost a fad kind of thing. So I went to a Chinese restaurant and got some sweet and sour chicken and got sick as a dog after 8 months. When I say that sweet and sour chicken just messed me up, But over the years, like Brian, I've kind of been like that too. Brian was a vegan for a while and a vegetarian.
And raw foodist, yep. Yeah. So, Tom, yeah, that's, you say you did the vegan or a vegetarian for 8 months, and you decided it wasn't for you. Can you kind of go a little more into that?
Yeah, 3, but there was no hump. There wasn't I wasn't getting detox symptoms. It was actually a starting to crash of the metabolism. And that's got nothing to do with detox. That's just a metabolic reaction to not getting enough nutrients in the body and calories. And also, too many things going in the body that it's not supposed to get. And also 5 years isn't a hump. So the people that were doing vegan for 5 years and lost their health, that's not a hump. Like, you don't detox for 5 years and hit a hump that you're supposed to get over. Because if they had kept going, they'd be like the cats that vegans take to the vets that are on their deathbed. And the vet says, look, a cat isn't supposed to be vegan. You got to feed it meat. Otherwise it's going to die. But that's what happens to some people. It's not a detox thing. So when you have the type of body that is a very fast oxidizing body, it won't handle a plant-based diet. It might if you're doing nothing but sitting and meditating, but if you're working hard, if you're doing a lot of outputting, it's not going to handle it. You will literally start to distract from a physical point of view, but also a mental, emotional, and spiritual point of view. So for me, when I did it for ethical reasons as well. I was like, well, because it was when I was starting to find out about how the world worked, how I started to question where things came from. I was like, well, I'm buying this, but where does it come from? Like, beyond this counter, where did that come from? How many slaves made this? How many trees were cut down? How much plastic went into the ocean? All that sort of stuff. So then with food, I was doing the same thing. I was like, well, I'm eating this, but where did it actually come from? I'm buying it from a shop, but beyond the shop, where did it come from? So that's when I started finding out a lot about the animal agriculture business and the way Australia sells off a lot of its livestock to China and ships it to the Middle East and all that sort of stuff. And it's not treated well at all. And there's a lot of reasons that it's bad, even just for the Australian people who, for a lot of reasons. So anyway, that's when I was like, well, this is really bad. I can't actually support this. So that's when I decided I'd look into vegetarianism and then also veganism, because in vegetarianism, I was eating the cheese. And then I was like, yeah, but the cheese also comes from these same practices that I didn't like with the meat. So, but I was also training 20 hours a week. I was running a business. I was 23 years old, 22, a lot of outputting. And I wasn't recovering from training. I wasn't stable, because different foods have different properties. So you got grounding properties. You've got well, in this instance, it's the grounding property that was the main issue. So there was a lot of things that just didn't fall into place. There was no detoxing. I didn't have any headaches. I didn't have any flu-like symptoms. I didn't have any aching muscles or anything like that. It was simply that my body wasn't recovering. It got to the stage where I wasn't sleeping, and then I was getting quite cold. And that's when the metabolism starting to slip, thyroid's not producing properly, and the adrenals are overtaking, trying to support everything, and then they get burnt out as well. So that was my, I just knew. It's like, you just know sometimes, you don't have to think, you just know. It's like I'm going into a destructive cycle here, and it has to change. So that's when I started thinking, well, I've hung out with natives and I've seen what they eat, and none of them are vegan. So I'm like, well, why aren't they vegan or vegetarian? Like, they are some of the most spiritually advanced people in the world. They don't have any disease, and they do stuff that's like most people can't do. Like most people in Western culture just physically can't do. And the amount of days they'll go without sleep if they want, and the amount of traveling they can do without water, and the amount of everything they can do, the heat that they can withstand, the cold they can withstand. I'm like, that's just, what are they doing? So that's when I started researching more into nutrition based on anthropology, and started looking into every tribe that's untouched by Western culture, the most ancient cultures on earth. And then all of them, like I said before, they all ate some kind of animal food, whether it was flesh, whether it was bugs, ants, whatever. Dairy was big amongst a lot of them. And so that's when I started going, well, if it's philosophically or ethically wrong, why are these people living the way they are? And that's when I found it just comes down to the balance that you hold between the exchange of energy and also not doing it for self-righteous reasons as well. So they're not self-righteous. They don't eat in order to feel good about themselves, about what they're doing. They eat to serve a higher purpose. So their food literally just transforms through their body so they can serve God. And that's when I got a different understanding about the philosophy and the philosophical and ethical kind of way of looking at food. And that's when I started to go, okay, well, if it's coming from a natural source, then I'm not getting involved in these things that I don't like, these unethical and mean kind of practices that go on, and very greedy. Like, I don't like commercialism or consumerism or capitalism in any way. So like, when it's to do with an animal, I hate it even more. But when it's to do with anything, I just don't like it. That's why I sleep on the floor, or I sleep in the bushes in a tent, or I don't wear new clothes. They all come from an op shop. Much as I can, I'm naked anyway. So it's like, I don't like involving myself in those practices. So when I found a way that I could eat in tune with that, then I was okay with it. And then over time, that progressed to eating it all raw as well, when I started finding out about what other cultures were doing. And I'm like, we're told to fear germs, and we're told to fear this, and you got to cook meats, and you got to do all this. And it's like, well, hang on, because these people aren't, and why don't they have disease and things like that? So, and just to make a good point, like that Henna said before, there are people who eat a lot of meat and they recover from conditions. There are a lot of people that are just plant-based and they recover from conditions. But like you said, Brian, you've also got to look at what they were doing before, because a lot of times people just heal from a heart condition or diabetes or whatever, because now they're not drinking 10 liters of Coke a week and shooting themselves up with whatever they're injecting into their bodies and, all that kind of thing. So it's more, a lot of the time, it's what people are taking away more than what they're putting into their body. And what you've really got to do is look at how that affects them over a 7 to 20 year period of doing the same thing for a long period of time without degeneration. And then you can say it's fine. But for most people, it's going to be a learning process, whatever they decide that they're going to eat.
Hannah.
Yeah. Well, about the cats are obviously carnivorous and we are not. So in that sense, it's not the most fair comparison. Like cats do not eat plants, whereas we are opportunist beings, right? So we can choose how we feed ourselves. And I would have been interested to see in your case, for example, Tom, if you got in touch with a plant-based naturopathic doctor, what could have they done with you? You know, like oftentimes people who they start feeling sick, they get they reintroduce the meat, and what would have happened? We don't know. You know, we don't know if there would have been a way that more grounding foods could have been, you know, introduced in the diet, more nutritional foods. I mean, there's plenty of athletes, bodybuilders who are completely on a plant-based diet and they are getting all the calories they need. So for me, it's something that I would love to see for myself when somebody is on a plant-based diet, starts having these symptoms like you're talking about. Could a naturopathic plant-based doctor help them in that case? If we don't know about these cases, then we can't say either way. But in any way, we know that it's possible. Both diets are possible for human being. But then we also got to think about anatomy. You know, when you look at the human body, the way it's been constructed, it, to me, seems very clearly that we are optimally fruit-eating, frugivorous beings like chimpanzees, you know, or gorillas. So I don't see the canines and, you know, the very short digestive tract that normally a carnivorous being has. So we clearly have the anatomy of a herbivorous or, you know, frugivorous being. And so when you look into ancient traditions, aside from, you know, people that ate meat, there are also others that didn't, you know, like Essenes, for example. So even if something was in history a practice that we were all doing because we were learning how to survive in nature, it's not to say that when we evolve, we can find alternative ways. You know, so when we learn about, for example, the principles of nature, how we can plant things and actually enhance things in nature with permaculture, then we can learn that there is actually ways that we can cultivate, you know, all different kinds of plants together, mushrooms, seeds, you know, nuts, fruits, vegetables, greens. And so this is what the Essenes, for example, were doing, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And same with the Andean rural tribes. They didn't eat meat. And, you know, even now, the longest living populations on Earth, like the Seventh-day Adventists or the people in Okinawa in Japan, are almost completely plant-based populations. So that to me, again, speaks in behalf of the fact that something also tremendously positive can happen in your body when you go completely on a plant-based diet.
Yeah. So when I did that, I was working with a naturopath as well. That was done with a naturopath. Most athletes, I don't know if you've been around sport much, but anyone that's in at least a decent level of professional sport, it's pretty well a 90 to 95% chance are high that they're also on performance enhancing drugs. Because I've been around that industry for 20 years, and that's pretty much like that video that came out, which I didn't see, but it was it had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it and a few other people. It's like anyone that's an elite level strongman, martial artist or whatever, they're taking drugs without doubt. Like I'll put my life on that because I've seen it. And so it's not really the diet, it's the fact that they're also taking a lot of extra things that can make sure that their body can withstand the rigors of training. So yeah, it's just important, I think, for people to not just look at celebrity status and then say, I'm going to base what I'm going to do based on their life or how many followers they have on Instagram or how their lives look based on how they portray it on screen or print. Because a lot of the times, like I've read several books from people and I'm like, but I know them. And I know their life's not like that. I know that what they're portraying is not in any way like that, but it just so happens they make 10 grand each time they go and do a a speaking tour somewhere, and it's like, it's really not an indication. It's not a accurate reflection on the life that they live. So it's really important, I think, for people to listen to their own body, whether they want to go plant-based or whatever they want to do. It's just really to listen to their own body and not to just take it off somebody, because that is how people get sick. And that is my profession. And I have seen a lot of people get really sick from doing that, from just following somebody else's, like, oh, I like their body, or I like their ethics, or I like their following or their movie or whatever. And then they go ahead and do something, and it leads to a hard road. And so it's just important really for people to just, have a look at why they're doing what they're doing, and then keep an open mind as they go. So if they need to make adjustments, they can.
Yeah, I think that is fair. You know, if there is somebody who genuinely have tried, who want to be ethical, plant-based, you know, vegan, and they've tried the diet and they have nutritional, you know, help, they have a naturopathic doctor, and they are saying for some reason your body is not able to cope with this, then it's obviously a moral thing to also look after yourself. So for me, if it is literally and honestly and genuinely a medicinal thing for your own healing, then I don't see there a moral problem. You know, this is for me very, very important. Some people may need honey, for example, although they normally wouldn't take it, but they have, for example, a food poisoning, and honey is the most enzyme-rich substance in the world, and that can really truly help them recover. So I, for example, in that case, would take honey because I need it for medicine. So for me, the biggest thing for me when I advocate for, you know, nonviolence and veganism is the awareness of why you are eating the way you're eating. Are you doing it for pleasure? Are you doing it for greed? Are you aware of what you're doing to the animals? Are you aware of the karmic consequences of eating enslaved beings? Because as a freedom advocate, you absolutely cannot eat enslaved beings and think that you are not creating enslavement for yourself, because that's natural law. That's, you know, cause and effect. That's law of correspondence. Whatever we do to others will be done to us. So it's very clear now, you know, we're starting to be vaccinated, microchipped, held hostage in our own homes, sterilized, all these things that we've been doing to our little sisters and brothers, the animals, over the centuries, is now that karmic comeback is coming to us. So if we want to stop the human enslavement, we absolutely must abolish the animal industry. And then if there are still individuals who, for health reasons, because I can't say that I'm an absolute expert in this, I haven't done the studies. I would have to have people who've gone sick from the, you know, vegan diet and really truly myself see what are the reasons, and if there was a way to help them, you know, with a plant-based diet to heal and recuperate whatever damage was done. But if there truly are cases that they, for their health, for whatever reason, genetic or chemical reasons, they need meat, then they should definitely be able to take the life of an animal themselves, skin them, chop them up, and eat them. Because morally, we can't bypass that. If we do choose to take a life, we also have to have the integrity to be able to do it ourselves. And then there is harmony restored, like what you were talking about, the indigenous people. They're fully aware of what they're doing. They're not paying somebody else to do it and then pretend there was not a life lost. They take the life themselves. And I know the Lakota people, for example, they prayed to Wakantanka, you know, the great spirit, to help preserve their people, because the area where they're living in the, you know, Rocky Mountains, in the red earth, they couldn't hardly have any plants growing there. So they were asking for kind of a, you know, what do you call it? Like a covenant with the buffalo. And so what happened is whenever a buffalo, what do you call them? A pack of buffalo would pass, the weakest one that was going to die anyway would stay behind, as a token of the collective spirit of the buffalo had accepted that and said, yes, you can take one of us in order to feed your people. So this is a completely different paradigm from what's happening now. You know, we have 70 to 80 billion land animals slaughtered every single year, you know, so much more if you include all the sea life into it. So clearly what we're doing, it's cruel, barbaric, you know, obscene violence and torture. And that can't be sustenance for anyone, because spiritually you're taken in their suffering as well. But if people who depend on the meat start doing their hunting themselves, you know, cut the animal's throat themselves and are willing to take responsibility for that, then that's a very different scenario altogether. And,
I
I
wanna
used to live
interject-
in the Amazon rainforest alongside tribal people, and some of them, they cultivate food as well, but some of them, they very much live off the land and they go hunting. But again, there's a difference there, because when you go at night, when you go to hunt, you know that your own life may be taken. So you accept the law of the land, you accept the law of the jungle, that, kill or be killed. There are snakes that can literally hunt you down and eat and bite you, and you'll die in 15 minutes. You take that risk when you go hunting. So that is the way that I agree with you, Tom, that with these indigenous people, that it wasn't from unethical place, because they accepted this order, that they themselves may be killed in the hunt, themselves.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Well, I agree with all of that too, because that is the problem with the world, is that people, they're very disconnected from their food, and and we do torture things. We do, and you're exactly right. If you're eating tortured, bastardized, and they've never lived a day in their life in nature, we're eating that, and so we are enslaving ourselves, because we're enslaving other species. And couldn't agree more. But I think that's the difference between people that actually have more of an understanding of where things come from and the cycle of life, and people who are just don't see past, or they're eating just purely for taste and pleasure, like you said. It's a very different way to go about the way you are interacting with life, not just eating, but interacting with life. So that's a big distinction that most people haven't made, and that's why, like you said, Hannah, that's why we're seeing all of that. Like Bill Burr, who I don't like anymore because he started doing a pro-mask rant, but he was my favorite comedian. But he said, you want to know what people are doing what we're going to have done to us in 10 years? Just look what they're doing to animals now. And it's like, it's funny the way he does it because it's comedy, but it's absolutely true. We're microchipping, we're vaccinating, we're enslaving, we're imprisoning. And then that's what's happening to us now. It really is. That's not like a joke anymore.
Yeah, I have to interject now, because as you guys are talking, the one thing you're both doing that's huge here, the big takeaway from this video is you're both pointing out the reality that people simply, regardless of which side they're on, how conscientious are they about what they're doing, right? How thoughtful are they about their approach to what they're doing? Because most people, yeah, they're like zombies already, right? Most people, it's sad. And it goes to the whole masking thing again, right? Brian and I every day are just beside ourselves still, Every day I go into the store, I'm the only one, me and my wife, the only one without a mask, and it's normal. Every single other person is covering their vital airways with a face diaper, right? So when you add into that the reality that people's diets anyway, so you guys are both on a higher plane anyway, not only because you're conscientious about what you're doing and you're conscientious about your bodies and the approach you take to eating, even though they're both different approaches, you're conscientious about it. Most people people's eating habits alone are, just the equivalent of the animal factory line, they're just in a blase, just taking what they're given, just taking what they're given. And on top of that, it is pleasurable for them, right? So it's not even just about whether you eat meat or not. With most people, man, they're indulging in their Ben and Jerry's and their ice cream and their chocolate and their chips and their Coca-Colas, let alone the smoking and the drink and alcohol, right? So people are so, on the whole, most people are so far gone from this conversation. How do we bring this conversation to them? Or can you? It's like, forget it. Address that one, you guys. Address that.
How do you get somebody to take off their mask? Who knows?
Because it's the same thing. It's in the same way that people are that. I just can't help but say it. Stupid. Foolish, ignorant, whatever. I need words, right, to help describe this. I can't even put it into words. When I see these people doing what they're doing and with their own children, it's mind blowing. So, but it's consistent. It's kind of parallel to the eating, because these same people that are doing that doing what they're told are also in this mode of just eating is only, there's no conscientiousness in it. There's no consciousness. It's just, you know, here in the United States of America, especially, I mean, every street corner has either a fast food restaurant or a gas station with its own fast food shelves where people are just constantly around pure junk, processed garbage, junk. So factor that in. Is there a way, how would we reach these people? We might reach some of them with Henna's approach of making them more thoughtful about, gee, and therefore all of a sudden, man, let me take the approach Henna took, right? I'm going to be a vegan. That's true. We're killing all these poor animals. Let me, you know, kind of tap into their soul maybe, or maybe even with Tom's approach, which again, I can't help but compare to, you guys got to, when I find a good Ted Nugent video on it, I'll send it to both of you guys. But the way he is, you know, because maybe Americans can relate with him, you know, good old Ted Nugent, the rocker, you know, who goes hunting for his own venison. If people are more conscientious, and that goes to your point, Henna, about are they taking the life themselves, you know, because that's what Ted Nugent, you know, often harps on too, is he's taking his own food and he's praying over it and he's giving thanks to it. You know, there's a spiritual aspect of it to him, you know. But as you guys are talking, it's on so much of a higher level for both of you in comparison to the sheeple, to the vast majority of people that are just in this conveyor system approach to life. You know, and Tom, and I know you didn't mean it that way, but when you say, you know, and they're vaccinating us and they're putting us in, you know, I know you're not talking about us as in me and you and Henna, because we'll die fighting against it. I'll die, right? You know, fighting against it. Just covering my face mask, my mouth alone. I'd die over that, right? I'd fight to the death over, no, you're not going to make me cover my vital airways, right? That's my reality. So vaccine, you think you're going to stick something in my arm and it could be some microchip that you're going to turn up the 5G and fry out my cells so you can kill me and say, look, another one died of a virus, right? No way. So, but there's so few people that are on, I mean, I'm on that level in terms of my passion and my commitment to principle, which is interesting because Henna's very principled, right? But she's a vegan. Tom is very principled, but he eats meat. I kind of hear Henna being able to possibly tap into Tom. If she could just have him in her life for a few years and be his doctor, she might convert him, you know, to being a vegan. I kind of almost hear that. But why don't both of you guys address, you know, everything you're saying, which is very high caliber, it's high level. How do we get that into the minds of all the sheeple? Henna.
Yeah, I was going to say Henna can probably handle it because I just think, though, the analogy, Mike, is people are wearing masks out of fear. People aren't necessarily eating out of fear. They're just eating out of a blind ignorance to things. And I think the way Henna was first approached, where just questions were asked, and then she was like, well, maybe there is a different way. So do you want to take it, Henna? Because I think that might be, you can probably.
Yeah, I think honestly, what we're doing now is the key, dialogue. You know, willingness to have dialogue, willingness to be authentic, willingness to ask questions and go into it with an open heart and not looking for, I'm going to be right and I'm not going to listen, but just say, okay, this is where I am. Where are you? And authentically having that dialogue. I think this is what's completely missing from humanity. We're not speaking to each other. You know, we've been so divided into all these different camps and genres and, you know, all these identities, and it's making us hate each other. It's creating this constant conflict. And, you know, when we do our activism, whether it's for human rights or animal rights, that's what we always tend to do, is we ask questions. You know, what do you think about this? And we create a space where people if they feel safe to be able to actually express themselves, because, you know, what they are being fed is that nobody cares about what you have to say. You know, you have no voice. That's the main, you know, kind of paradigm that people have accepted. The experts know better. The government knows better. I have no rights. They've accepted this kind of slave mentality. So what we need to do, what I see to be the key, is to empower people, you know, to come to know their true nature, that they are incredible creator beings that have power over their lives, can control what they do, how they respond to whatever situation, whether it's a crisis or, you know, whatever. and that we are here together. You know, it doesn't matter if we eat differently, we can still respect each other, love each other, and be friends and family members. We don't have to all become the same, you know? We're just here all trying to learn better ways to be in harmony with each other and with nature, you know, and with everyone that's here, all the beings, all the animals. So if we can do that from a place of respect, you know, that this kind of spell of division just vanishes. We can just all be heart to heart and have a dialogue, you know?
Tom?
All right. I guess I'm saying that. There was enough space there for me to, you know, just this will be quick. The next conversation we're going to have, maybe, and we might have to create another website instead of the bigvirushoax.com, the bigspiritualhoax.com or something. But we could we're talking about food, nutrition, and eating right now, by and large. But as I was listening to you, Henna, it opens the door for even a spiritual conversation. You were talking about labels and stuff. And I'm sure you didn't necessarily agree with that email I just sent out, you know, how I described the camps here in the USA, right? Because we kind of say there's the left camp, which the labels we put on it, right, are Democrat, liberal, progressive, socialist, anarchist, right? They're kind of all in that camp. And the right camp are the conservative, traditional family values, you know, sovereignty, you know, nationalists, you know, there are divisions in life that it would be interesting to address those. That's the bottom line. We could do that too, because it's more of a spiritual kind of thing of approaching life from a social, you know, perspective. You know, I'd love to have that conversation with you guys down the road, but keeping it just on the issue of, again, just general mindfulness and awareness, which is the great point you've both have brought up in this conversation, is for people to be mindful and thoughtful about what they're eating and what they're putting in their body. You guys have both done a great job of raising that reality of awareness. So again, Henna, just kind of elaborate more on that, about how we can get people, with what you were just saying, you know, really into how can we, you can do it because we see you on your videos out on the street corners promoting it. You know, what's a little thing that people can do to maybe become a little more proactive? Not only, you know, it has to start with themselves, right? It has to start here. But sometimes, you know, it can't just be here. Sometimes just by, like you said, communicating like we're doing, right? How can, you know, what's the big thing you could say about how people can kind of really get something rolling where it's for themselves, being more mindful? How can people start becoming more mindful? I think I already know the answer with you. I mean, because yours was a good one, right? But then also get where they can start feeling an ability to kind of share that with others. Because again, going to Tom's point, people, or maybe Henna said it, we all said it, fearful, right? People are fearful and insecure. You know, they don't want to communicate. So address that. Let's get more people being mindful and conscious and aware and using their brains and not being sheeple. Hit it, Henna, and then Tom take over.
I think one of the keys is being in nature. I think when you put anybody into nature for 5 hours or even 3 hours, they will begin to remember who they really are. So if we can do that, if we can take our friends for walks, you know, if we can go out and organize little events and gatherings in nature, it's just naturally we begin to reconnect with our ancestors, with our true self, with our true nature. And then one of my kind of tricks that I use to help me feel safe to communicate with others is I imagine I'm talking to their inner child. So it takes away any kind of, you know, fear of approaching the person. I remember they are the son or daughter of somebody. So I always put them into a larger context. And I think, how would I speak to them if I was their mother? Or how would I speak to them if I was their best friend? So I try to put a lot of heart into that dialogue, you know, so that I don't feel like I'm going into speaking with a stranger or speaking with an enemy, but I'm speaking to my sister or my brother, you know? So I do this wherever I am. I speak to the person at the till, you know, whoever I meet. If I feel that there's an opening, I may ask them, what do you think about what's really going on? And just little things like that. Honestly, like those little connections just can start a whole domino effect of awakening, feeling, wait a minute, I'm being noticed. by somebody, and it's a genuine connection that is being established. I think that it's not like we have to do some kind of grandiose thing. It's just we just have to go back into being human, and we have to communicate that with our, fellow beings here. What do you think, Tom? How do you do it?
Yeah, same thing. I try to have compassion for people who I think are morons and things, because it's like sometimes it's just that part of them that's expressing or that's fearful is a 6-year-old that just that part of them never developed. So if I look at somebody's behavior as it is their inner child, like you do, it's very hard to get angry or judgmental about somebody, because you're literally dealing with a kid, and you're not going to go call a kid a stupid moron. Well, some people do, but I wouldn't. But
Yeah.
it's just, if you can approach people like that, and like you said, it makes them more approachable. And then at the end of the day, everybody has known for a long time. Well, our kind of people have known for a long time that it's really about getting back to nature, as you said, Henna, but it's about getting back to community. The whole problem with the world, I don't think there would be as much of a push towards veganism and vegetarianism if we didn't have the commercial, the structure of the world that we did. Because if people were eating in relation to their own communities and only taking a small amount of, whatever it is, whether it's animals or honey or milk or whatever, we wouldn't be overtaxing the land or the animals. And we wouldn't be supporting these horrendous networks that currently exist, because they wouldn't exist, because they only exist because of a globalist model, essentially. If it was all community based, like the tribes that you've spoken of, and like Inuits and well, too many to list, but there's like so many people that live in harmony with the land, that aren't destroying habitat and that aren't depleting or making extinct species and making things sicker than they ever have been. That's what we do. That's what the world that is and has become. That's what's creating it. And it's because people are just too bent towards convenience and their ego. It's like so easy to just get food from a takeout store or a supermarket and not have to know where it came from, or have to put effort into sourcing it or getting it or making it or growing it or catching it yourself. That's too much inconvenience to most people, and convenience is what sells to the masses, and that's what the current system is based on. So if people just got back to nature, got back to community, and started decentralizing everything, then that is the solution to everything. And there wouldn't be too many people on Earth, because there's plenty of land to go around. And it's just the way we're using things and the way we're doing things. That's why it seems like there's too many people in it. And it's more the way that we are approaching it. And it's really harming us more than anything. Yes, it's hurting the Earth, it's hurting the animals, but it's really coming back on us in a big way. And whatever we've got coming in the future, because we've been living this way for so long, we kind of, it's we've got to deal with it, because that's the responsibility you got to take for the actions that you've taken in the past and in the present, the way we think, the way we act. That's all. That it doesn't just have no consequence. So I think as far as ameliorating the fear, it comes down to who we are. So if we're talking to people and we're hoping in some way to change, or at least not change their mind, but allow them to come to a different perspective on the world, I think it starts with who we are. So before we even open our mouths and say anything, it's like there's something about Henna. She's calm, or she's radiant. There's something about her that I like. So before she even opens her mouth, I'm going to listen to her. As opposed to somebody who only wants to tell people what to do, and it's not coming from somewhere that has already found its place in the world. Doesn't matter what words come out of that mouth, they won't be heard. So it's like we affect people more by who we are in our state of being than what we want to tell them, or what philosophies we want to share, or what's right and wrong. It's really who we are. And if we emanate that, people will listen. They'll automatically be less fearful. They'll already be open. And then you can open your mouth and they'll hear it.
Wow.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's good.
I was going to ask about as far as a meat-based diet, how the whole world could do that. And you kind of talked about that community and actually just, living, taking things from the area that you're in, and then we wouldn't need all these factory farms and things.
Well, we wouldn't, and a lot of people overconsume it in the first place anyway. It's like traditionally you would be, if you're just living literally off the land, you're foraging for berries and some of the succulents that grow. There's not much, most fruit is hybridized, it's man-made. You know, like a lot of cultures, you know, grounds freeze over in the winter through Northern Europe and all that sort of stuff. You're not really eating a lot of kale shakes and that. So it's like you would be foraging for foods, and then you would ceremonially take an animal maybe once a month on a full moon, and it would feed people for a week. You would you'd use every part of it. You use the bones to make things like needles and whatever. You use the hair for things. You make the rugs and you make clothing out of the skins. You eat every part. You use every part of the animal. But we overconsume in our society. What we would, if we were naturally living, we wouldn't be taking the same number of animals that we do now in our current culture.
I hate to throw a monkey wrench into this, but I'm like an ultimate realist, right? And that's why, as I'm listening to you guys talk, a lot of what you're saying is all high-end, high-level stuff. But then my mind starts thinking about reality, right? You were addressing the issue, and Brian started to bring it back up. The systems of this world, right? The mass production, the mass producing of things, right? The fact that you mentioned earlier, convenience, Tom. People have to work, you know, and usually doing something they don't want to do because they got to pay bills. And therefore it's hard for them to be in nature because they're working in some building, in an office, in a concrete jungle. So all these beautiful concepts about what's right realistically don't apply to a vast majority of people who are caught up in this system. So the whole systems of this world is the problem. And I'm sure you agree with that. I mean, it's the systems, right? It's the socioeconomic system.
I think it's the people. I think the people feed the system, because for me, like, for example, most people think that banks are evil because banks literally are probably the source of all the problems, but banks only offer services. It's people who take out loans and credit cards and mortgages for things they don't need, push property prices up to what they are. It pushes all the other prices up for food and everything else. And it creates this money cycle of it's literally people that are creating it. It's not the banks.
Right. So let me piggy on that. So I agree with that. But now what that does is it exacerbates the ones on the top are, hey, if that's what the people want, I can make more money. And then so it's a vicious cycle because, okay, people do it, but then it gives incentive to the ones on the top to even connive and cheat and up the rates and make it more, where it just starts to create a system in place that just entraps everybody. How are we going to go out in the nature? How are we going to, not have, commercialism, this whole, I always say I believe in capitalism because I believe in like a mom and pop business, but I don't believe in corporatism. I don't like the mega corporations. I think they need to be done away with first. But to the extent that those big mega corporations are the ones that are saying, well, wait a minute, we got 1 million people to feed here. Sorry, Tom, but you can't in this city or that city or that city or that city or that city, just go out in your backyard and take from your land. You can't. There's a system in place to provide that food for people. And guess what? That system is a profit-based system. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, well, I would say that, again, the solution to this is community. So even if we take the worst case scenario, example that there are tons of people who live, let's say in New York, in council buildings, and they are like up to their necks with work, and they have minimum wage, and they have to work 3 jobs or whatever. If you put together a bunch of you and you start saving money, it doesn't take that long for you to be able to buy a plot of land, for example, together, and then you can make your own permaculture farms. Like, I think it's wonderful that we have ability these days to use technology for our own benefits. There's nothing wrong with using the infrastructure that is in place to create things like micro farms and use solar power or hydro electricity, and you can create little greenhouses. You can build you can you can grow things on terraces on many levels. You can build them on the side of the building, and you can use the knowledge that we have now on how to cultivate things on a very small plot of land. So
until that government says, oh, no, you can't do that. Or no, we're going to tax you for doing that. They're going to do things to discourage people. I live in Miami, Florida, and throughout the years, they would do things. They come up with, I forgot the name of it, but you can't grow a lime tree in your yard, which happened to come around the same time that they had the cartels that were controlling the lime groves that wanted, in other words, no, you got to buy from us, right? So when they see people more and more start to do what you're suggesting, they're going to shut it down because you become a threat to their big system.
Well, then it comes to the whole straw man and, you know, becoming a free sovereign being and just, you know, ejecting yourself out of that system and creating common law courts and, you know, getting really seriously organized. I think that is what's this opportunity, this whole manufactured crisis is asking us to do, actually. That is our only way, is just to make these systems completely obsolete. And that can only be done by taking self-responsibility and saying, I will become the leader of my own life, and empowering other people with knowledge to come to that same position. And then together we can have conscious communities who say, no, you're not coming here. This land is ours and we do what we want with this. And if you're going to go against us, we're going to hold you accountable in the court of law, common law court, you know?
Tom, you were going to say something on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's, well, just following from Henna, it's strength in numbers. I mean, if one building does it, maybe some authorities could come in and take it over. But I wrote about this in my ebook. Is like people that live in cities. First of all, if they want to make it work there, there's so much you can do on rooftops, on terraces, between, in amongst streets, community gardens in cities. There's so many things you can do. But at the end of the day, I think people are only in cities usually for convenience. Easy access to money, usually. So it's like, why are you propagating that? Why can't you just leave? And I you know, realistically, I'd like to see a future where instead of cities being the new smart cities, they're ghost towns, because everyone abandoned cities and left them for the rotting messes that they are, or allowed it to grow over with nature and then start to become food forests. And then, but more or less just go out, like Hannah said, you got to take responsibility for yourself. If you think you're going to live in a city and have all the convenience and the trappings of living in a city and also have your own personal sovereignty, freedom, and power, I think that's asking too much. I think they're opposing ideals. So it's not that you can't have both, but I think the reasons people are there in the first place are at odds with becoming a self-realized being. So in order to do that, you really need to stand on your own 2 feet, and that means doing it for yourself. And that's why a lot of people are leaving cities and then going to places like, apparently Idaho has a lot of places going at the moment. People are just starting to do it themselves. They're growing their own food. They're getting chickens, they're getting goats, they're getting everything. They're getting everything that can help to fertilize to naturally fertilize the land and have it all running as an ecosystem so that they have food security, which is becoming a big topic at the moment, because people are starting to realize, hang on, this system that we do rely on is not that, people are already hinting at it. Hey, if this one country over here does this, there goes the world's food supply, and people are freaking out. So people like us probably aren't. I'm not, because there's so much that grows here that I'm not worried at all. But a lot of people around the world are, and it's because they are relying on that. So I think they need to turn their back on that to a degree, because otherwise, if they can't do that and start doing it for themselves, they're essentially just in limbo. They're waiting for that to happen. And then it's going to be too late. That's when we're going to see big die-offs in the world population, because it's going to be like, the plagues and things that happened, which weren't really plagues. They were starvation. There was dysentery from people when the banking systems collapsed and people couldn't feed themselves. So they starved to death. So then that kind of thing can happen again, and is likely to happen again, unless people start taking responsibility for themselves, learning more about the environment and food and soil and nature's cycles, and then doing that. And so it's really, I think Hannah said it before, it's kind of like, this is a point in time where we get to choose. So we get to choose, we're being offered, it's a gift. We're getting to choose now to take that path of living as a human being on Earth, not as a slave in a matrix. And other people are going to choose that, and that's just fine. That's their path. We're never going to convince everybody to go, hey, come and do this, because they just don't want to. It's not their path. Some people in this lifetime will never wake up, and they're not supposed to. And we have to understand that. It's like not our path to wake everybody up. So, but we do get to choose our own path. And us four are choosing that, and a lot of people are, and a lot more people are, but there's still going to be those that are going to choose the vaccine and the city and the 5G and the everything else. And that's totally fine, because that's their choice. But it is an offering and a gift to us that we can make that decision. And it really redefines for us what it is to be a human being on Earth. and to live the way that we were actually put on this earth to do. And yeah, it's not as convenient as just watching TV and then calling up somebody, hey, deliver food to my house so I can keep watching another movie. But that's boring to me anyway. I haven't done that since I was 18. That's not fun for me. So I don't do that. I'd rather be outside under the stars around a fire, playing some music, going to bed early, whatever it is. I don't want to do that, but other people do. So it's a choice and a chance for us to say, no, this is what I want out of life, to be closer to God and closer to the source of all things, and to be able to feel that and to tap into it. And you kind of don't get that when you just, life's too easy. It's like, now we've got a choice, and I think it's a good choice.
Yeah, there's a saying that everyone gets what they deserve, and also that some seeds never germinate. And I think both is true in this case, as in nature, so happens with our souls. So some people, for certain reason, they are in a spiritual coma and they haven't come to still discover what gifts this life offer. If you do look beyond, the matrix, if you do look into nature and into your true self, your true nature. So I think that is a liberation when you come to realize that we don't have to, and we can't carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, in terms of believing that we are personally responsible for waking everybody up. Yes, we're responsible for doing that work, but eventually the person themselves, they have to say yes to it. We can provide the information, we can do everything we can to empower and inspire people, but we can't. That awakening is like the blossoming. You can't force that. Everything has to be right for that to happen, and it has to be a natural process, and it has to come from love. And so if that soul is not right, it's not mature, the consciousness is not ready for that to happen, then we just have to let them go their way, and whatever happens to them is what they've chosen, even if it was an unconscious choice, but they did choose that. So that's something I've learned in this time as well, is to accept that there's very likely going to be a divide into these organic, conscious human colonies, and then these kind of enslaved, pharmaceutically driven, technocratic, smart cities.
Too bad.
That reminds me of a bumper sticker I just kind of came up with, and I'm not sure Mike likes it, but love is a universal solvent. Usually people say water is a universal solvent, and just kind of jumping on Tom's, the virus is a solvent, but love is a universal solvent. I'm gonna make a bumper sticker.
He got that because of you too. He got love from Henna, and he got solvent from Tom.
So, shall we end this here? And I wanted to mention, Tom, you mentioned something about an e book or something, or just a minute ago, where you said you wrote something.
Oh yeah, that was quite a few years ago. Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Can people get that now? How would people get that?
Yeah, they can. Yeah, that's on. It's called barnettbooks.shop. It's just a site that was simple site that was put up just to host the ebook. Oh, actually, it's got my 2 virus videos on there too. They got put on there too.
Okay. And you have any other things you want to share with people on how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I've got a site. It's almost ready, tombarnett.tv. That's because so many people in the truth kind of movement are just getting booted off everything at the moment. Like, a lot of people just in an instant are losing all of their platforms. They've got their personal channels, and then they've got like pages that they run, which are like truth network kind of pages, and they're all just disappearing. They're doing a massive cull through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those sorts of things. So I've already...
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom, I just want to say I just got hit yesterday. My YouTube channel, I've had it for 15 years. It's had over 1 million views of my videos and 3,000 subscribers. I mean, it's not like huge, but that's pretty big. And yesterday, gone, it's gone. And that's why on the bigvirushoax.com right now, there's a bunch of blank, empty, YouTube videos, because a lot of them were from my channel that I upped. Fortunately, we put a lot of those videos on BitChute, so we're going to be, re-putting them back on the site. But yeah, 15 years with a YouTube channel, over 1 million views, 3,000 subscribers, and they just because of what I've been,
and it's happening to a lot of people. Yeah, so I'm just putting all the content that I can on there, and I'll stream from there as well, so it can't be censored and booted off.
And that's
Brilliant.
tombarnett.tv, okay?
Yeah.
And Henna, you've got some places, I'm sure. for people.
Yes, so I've got my website, dawnofpeace.org. And I am going to be building a personal website as well, a bit like what Tom was saying, to have my content there all in one place, because I'm also being targeted and my videos are being removed. Like all the ones with the most important info is just vanishes within hours. So it's a bit frustrating. So I'm finding ways to do that in a way where it's secure. And there is going to be a platform built by Mark Passio as well called One Great Work Network. And I'm going to be one of the content creators there. It's also going to be like a truth network with lots of, spiritual teachings and about sovereignty, about natural law, and probably animal rights as well, human rights. So that'll be launching, I think, by the end of this month. So I'll be one of the content creators there. But otherwise, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and Telegram.
One Great Work Network, or One Great
Work Network.com. I'm not sure of the final website name yet, but that will I'm sure will be launched everywhere by the end of November. But yeah, it will be One Great Work Network.
Now, Tom, the musician, guitar player, you knew this day was coming, that I was at least going to ask. Do you know how cool that would be if all of a sudden you turned around and just picked up a guitar, man? And because I gave you the music, I sent you the chord changes.
You did.
Did you get it down? Yeah.
No, I don't have a guitar. I got a girlfriend.
You don't have a guitar?
I got a girlfriend instead, and my room's now redecorated. I don't have guitars in my room.
Do you have a guitar though?
Oh, I still have a guitar, yeah, but just not in my room.
Is it tuned up?
No, I don't have the acoustic. I got an electric, and it's in drop C.
Yeah. Did you mess a little bit? Or are you more of a thrasher?
No, I did, but I can't sing. I tried it, and I'm like, oh, this is just horrible.
No, man, it'll be good, man.
We'll get Henna
keep working on it.
Yeah. I'm sure
Tom eventually is going to perform for everybody the Virus song, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
He's gonna get it. Keep pushing. Keep egging him on, everybody. Everybody out there who sees this, always send a note to Tom. Learn how to play and sing the Virus song. Ain't no viruses.
All right.
You gotta. That would be a blessing unto the world, Tom, just to hear you play and sing that. So remember, you just started. Here's a quick lesson, right? Just kind of, do your little G. And my friend once told me there are no such things as viruses, right? Get your words to place on the right chords. My friend once told me, just speak it. My friend once told me there are no such things as viruses. I looked into it real deep, and this is what I found, right? So you just that's how I teach my students to sing, because a lot of people are, uncomfortable singing. So I say, speak, sing it, my friend once told me there are no such things as viruses, and then kind of get your rhythm down. My friend once told me there are no such things as viruses. I looked into it real deep, and this is what I found. Right? So that's how you'll learn it. Just kind of ease into it with speak singing it. You'll get it, Tom, because that would be so cool to see you sing it. And then once you kind of get comfortable, you'll kind of get the little, my friend, kind of put your singing into it. My friend once told me there are no such things as viruses. And do it slow. And then eventually you do it several times over and over, and you kind of get the feel. My friend once told me there are no such things as viruses. I looked into it real deep, and this is what I found. There's no such thing as tiny little creatures called viruses. There are no invisible enemies wandering around. There's only little tiny microscopic specks at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I can't even remember my own song right now.
All right, guys.
But Tom, it'll be great to see you, man. So just a little wean yourself into it, buddy. I want to see you. I want to see you even just sing it one day.
I'd like to see that too. Absolutely.
It'll be cool. Hannah, do
Misery.
you play? Do you play, Hannah?
Yeah.
You play too?
Piano is my
Piano?
first instrument, but I also play guitar, but it's more
Right.
just
So you
like
could play
chords
a
and-
G chord, right?
Yeah,
and a C,
yeah.
and a C chord and a D chord. All right. So you learn it too. That'll be awesome. You guys will both sing
And
it.
we can do a duet.
Yes. Yeah. That'll
Great.
be cool. So work on it, guys. Get it down. It's a fun little song. And it's got
Okay.
words of truth in it.
Thank you, guys. We'll let you get back to your stuff.
Good night. Good night, Tom. Good afternoon, Hannah. And maybe I'll go back to bed. Maybe I'll stay up. I don't know.
All right.
Thank you guys. Lots
See
of
you next
love.
time. Thanks.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.